Dr. McKenna, what is top of mind for you today?
Well, Sabbath, this is a moment for me. We sent in the final manuscript or the final draft from us to the publisher for my book that's going to come out. And it was a really exciting moment. As you know, a ton of pressure on that. And I just want to say something about that is kind of, I've experienced depth around lately. And it's really about this, that we are living in a world that is starving for leaders we can trust and longing to become those leaders ourselves. And I don't mean by that perfect leaders, not always right leaders, but whole leaders, willing to be seen, willing to keep growing, and willing to lead in ways that require both courage and sacrifice. These are the leaders who know that it's not a trait. It's a practiced and powerful choice. They're not defined by masks they wear, but by the risk they take to be honest about who they are. And we just don't need better leadership models. We need leaders who are becoming better humans. And that path toward trust is something that's so critical for me, is both strategic and deeply personal. It is both. And every leader carries a blueprint, some conscious and some buried, that's shaped by experience, by pain, by belief, and by hope. But blueprints aren't buildings. What transforms the structure of a life or an organization is both the plan and the builder's belief in what could be. And the call in front of us is not to fabricate something shiny or flawless, but to construct something real, something intentional, and something that can withstand pressure because it's grounded in truth. And trust isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of integrity, of consistency, of humility and clarity, even when the winds pick up. This is a reformation, is the way I think of it, not a trend. It is a return to something elemental, the capacity to lead ourselves and others from a place of wholeness. And it's not for the faint of heart. It's just not. Because once you've seen what trust can do, once you've led a team that tells the truth, or you've worked with a leader who owns their humanity, you can't unsee it. You will want more of it. And you'll want to become the kind of person who builds it. And this is precisely why I'm so excited for our guest today, Sab. This is a friend of mine. This is a brother of mine who understands what I just said. And I am so excited for this conversation.
Let's get this wild conversation going. Welcome to the Wild Conversation, where human being and human doing converge, reshaping the world of leadership, culture, and performance. Today, we get to have a wild conversation with Jose Rodriguez. For over 10 years, Jose has had a passion to rescue urban youth. He has an educational background in youth ministry from Oral Roberts University and a testimony of God rescuing him out of gangs, drugs, and poverty. He has both life experience and education to help him empower others through his nonprofit, Rescue a Generation, where they are life coaches for students on school campuses who are struggling with life skills. They are in 30 schools across Southern California. 30 schools across Southern California. His book was published in 2022. It's Rescue a Generation, Reaching the Least, Last, and Lost. Jose wears many hats in the field he works in. He is a life coach, a motivational speaker, a curriculum writer, a pastor, a deep friend of Wild, and most importantly, he is a husband and now a new father.
Yeah.
We know Jose, and what we would say about him is that he brings depth that is relevant to this generation. Jose, thank you for being with us today.
What an intro. Wow. I feel really special after that. It's an honor to be here. Such a fan of Wild and just the way you guys are developing leaders in such a real way is incredible. So thanks. Thanks for having me.
We're so excited for this conversation. And as we do, we are going to play a quick round of wild cards to get us started. I know you're familiar with these. I
Yeah.
just drew 10 out of the deck. So we'll choose a number each, a different number between 1 and 10. I'll go first. Jose, you can go next. And then Dr. McKenna will round us out. I'm going to choose 9 today. Pull from the bottom. If you stepped back and took a moment to pause, what would be different? I would shift my perspective. This happened to me in real time last night. I was feeling urgency and pressure, wanting to pass the blame. And in a literal moment of pause, I was able to remember the purpose and find, my good, positive perspective. So that's what happens when I step back. Pause.
Awesome. I love that.
Jose, pick a
Yeah.
number.
I'm going to go number 3.
All right. 1, 2, 3. What are 3 things you could accomplish today that would allow you to say this was a good day?
I love that. This podcast would be one of those. I'm speaking at a camp tonight, so strong delivery to the message would be awesome. Seeing students respond, it's all you can never. And then being at home with my family, my 7-week-old son at the end of the day, just being present and there. No, it's not doing, but just being there for sure. At the end of the day, I'm already convinced it's going to be a good day today.
That's good.
Love
That's
that.
good. Number two. Number 2.
Number 2. What are you taking personally today that likely has nothing to do with you?
I'm not going to get into specifics because no one has enough context to understand it. But there is one big thing I was taking personally today, and it's hearing that question is a reminder that it probably has much less to do with me than I imagined. So thank you for the question. Thank you for the question. Jose, this is so good. We are so grateful to have you here. I would be so remiss not to ask you right away. Okay, what is just one little insight you have of now being the father of a 7-week-old?
There's probably no greater feeling in the world than to see your 7-week-old smile at you. Monday morning, I'm getting ready to go up to the camp, and I wake up and I just see this big smile. And he's not at the place where he knows that he's smiling yet, so it's still very he just smiled for no reason. It had nothing to do with me. But it just meant everything to me. I was like, that is it. Like that's what I'm living for now. And so that was really, really cool. This week actually. So
That's amazing.
yeah.
And I remember because last time we were together face to face, like the baby was on the way, right? So it was just like right on the way. And so it's amazing when people transition into parenthood, into that moment, it's just crazy. So crazy. So let's get into it. So Rescue a Generation is rooted in your personal journey from gangs to God, and now leading urban youth in across Southern California. And I'd love to know as we get started into this conversation, tell us where the vision of Rescue a Generation started for you.
Yeah, good. I love the question. I was in college and I barely made it to college. In fact, I was barely out of high school. I ended up in Bible school for 2 years because I couldn't get into college. My GPA was way too low. I was just a really rough teenager. And so I didn't prepare well for the future. I got
Mm,
to college, my first year of college, I flunked every class, and true story, like every class, and should have dropped out, should have quit, should have threw the towel in. At the time, I was involved with the church, and what I realized was the church was really good at reaching students.
mm, mm,
They were not as good at reaching students like me. And I saw that pretty consistently, not just at the church I was at the church is that I was seeing.
mm,
And with a degree in theology, where I'm like, okay, now I want to go and make an impact in this generation. I could go apply at a mega church. I could go do a lot of things with that degree. I
yeah.
just thought, man, I don't want to climb a church ladder. I don't want to climb the ranks there. And I just had this deep burden. Like, what would it look like to spend the rest of my life going after students who are really falling through the cracks, like kids just like me? So, on one hand, yes, gangs and my dad was in drugs and all of that, but I also was even when I got into church, I was a really bad kid. I got kicked out of the church as a 15-year-old for stealing a church van. I was a mess. And they should have gave up on me.
Mm,
But there was a lady that had enough grit to not throw the towel in on me, and
Huh.
it changed the rest of my life. And so I made a commitment. I will go after kids who give me every reason to throw the towel in on them, no matter what it takes. And that's where Rescue a Generation came from. I didn't realize it'd be a nonprofit at the time. I didn't realize we'd be in schools like we are. Like, I didn't have the context for it at the time. I had the mandate for it. I had the vision, like I would rescue a generation when it's all said and done. That's what this is going to be about. And here we are.
Wow.
Yeah.
So good. How have people responded to your book? In 2022 came out Rescue a Generation, Reaching the Least, Last, and Lost. And what are you hoping that readers take away from it when they finish it?
Yeah, great. My hope is that, there are so many negative stats about the generation we're looking at. I mean, like, you name it, like the COVID era, like, all of the things have like drastically affected like this generation in such a real way. My hope of what people get out of the book is that they actually see hope where there seems like there is none. I
Hmm.
Mm,
love the book Hope Quotient by Ray
Hmm.
Johnston. He talks about, man, you put somebody in the most adverse circumstances and you give them a sliver of hope, and there's no power like the power of hope that can help somebody overcome or come out of these situations or circumstances. And so for me, I want every reader to see that I don't care how bad the person is or the situation is or the circumstance is, there's hope in a generation that looks like the least, the last, and the lost. And I radically believe in these young people. And the book is very niche in the sense of, like, it's for an audience of people that are primarily working with students. Like, that's who it's, been received by the most. And in that context, it's received really well. I will say, though, I haven't branched out of that context much, but I knew that writing the book. I wasn't like, this is going to be a bestseller. I knew this was a very targeted, like, hey, for those that are working with young people, like, you need this as a blueprint on how to see and help them overcome some of those odds. And so it's been an awesome journey. What I'm most proud of the book, though, is that in every chapter there's a QR code at the end of the chapter with a video that is
mm,
me adding a little bit more context to the chapter. And I just thought, what a cool element in this video world we live in,
mm.
to just add value with a few stories and of impact
Yeah.
that I've seen over my time. And yeah, so it's been really, really cool. So yeah, love, love, love the
Yeah.
fact that I'm an author. Like, yo, I flunked English and Spanish in high school. Like, I
Hello.
should not be an
Yep.
author right now. I'm an author, like a
Yes, you
publisher.
are.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because I relate to pieces of it because I tell people I'm the least likely person to have that DR in front of my name that you know, and there's a whole other story about that. One of the things that occurred to me as you were talking is that there is some relationship between the people that you describe as the least, the lost, and the last, and the lost, and the people in organizations. A lot of leaders will struggle with, what do I do with those people that are really causing trouble or they're resistant to change and development? And I'm curious, when it comes to working with young people, what is it that, like, is this thing that you would want a leader to hear and say, like, if we just had done this? Because I think there is something related to the person who's put up barriers and boundaries, like they think they're too, you know what I mean, they're not worthy of it or whatever you would say. Jose, I'm curious about what you would say to that leader and say, this is something that you maybe haven't thought of before, and how to bring them.
love it. So while the context for the book was mainly students, my context currently is not as much students. I'm no longer the guy on the campuses like I was. And I've seen that transfer and translate to all the adult workers that work with me too. Like, I
Mm.
can see the exact
Mm,
same principles at play in my current like staff. And I'm like, oh, there you are. Like, I see that thing, right? And
Yeah.
so here's the thing that I wish everybody knew. This is like the baseline of all the work that we do. Beliefs always dictate behaviors. And what happens is we see the behavior so often and we're always like frustrated, irritated. We don't understand it. How could they? Why would they? Whatever. If you want to change the behavior, you got to find out what the belief is. And when I say belief, I'll specify that a little bit. It's what people believe about themselves,
Mm,
what people believe about others. So sometimes it's the context that they're in and the people they're around, or what people believe about the thing that they're doing. So some people just don't think they're capable of being able to do the thing that they're doing, and their behavior is going to show. So the walls are going to come up because you get into that self preservation type thing. That happens all the time. If you really want to motivate somebody, you got to find out what's the belief that's driving the resistance. I can promise you 10 times out of 10, there is one. It just may take a little patience to actually get it because chances are they're not going to, if you say, hey, what's the belief that's driving the motivation? They're probably not going to answer it right off the bat like that. So it'll take you getting curious and kind of sitting in a conversation a little bit to explore what that is. Because if they knew it, they probably would change it. In fact, that's why I love coaching. Coaching,
yeah,
taking these internal conversations that we're all having with ourselves, making them external so you can actually do something about it. So it's not me
yeah,
telling you what you should change, it's me asking you why you're doing what you're doing. The moment you say it out of your mouth, now we have something to play with. Now okay, well, is that what you actually want out of your life? Is that actually the thing that you're desiring right now? And now you can actually make some real radical behavior changes. So that's not just a student thing, that is an adult thing. That is a
mhm.
people thing, and I see it over and over and over again.
People that heard what you just said will understand. Who know me will know exactly why you and I became friends very quickly. Because it's like one of the things that kind of drives me crazy is that we could do a better job of the invitation. And you highlighted this, that we have failed to ask questions and invite a person's story of their beliefs out. And so like, and I could do it right now for everybody listening to this. If I just pause for a moment, and this is for everybody else, right? The three of us have seen this work, but and just ask yourself, what would change for you if you felt more supported? What would change for you and for others if you felt more supported? And you stop to think about that question, because I don't know your answer. There's an answer within you that is a part of your unique story. And when you ask questions like that I don't know the answer to, it's inviting someone out in a way that, because what we typically do is we say to people like, you are supported. Doesn't make me feel supported.
Yeah.
It's that question that says, oh, there's an inspiration that I could actually believe something different. Is
Mm.
crazy. So thank you for that. So this thing when
Dr.
we
Rob,
do,
real quick, right? I'm
yes,
curious
yes.
from your angle, right? I love this because look, I'm very much just boots on the ground. I'm a knucklehead that somehow just got to where I am, and I'm trying to figure it out. You got the DR in front of the name. You do the research. You do the homework, like, and I'm always really impressed with that because of the diligence that takes, right? What have you seen in regards to this behavior conversation? Because I actually think this is a key to people unlocking the future of their organization, their businesses. If you can actually shape behavior in a real way, you could change everything. And it does speak to trust too, because you got to
Yeah.
develop that first. And I know we're going to get to the trust conversation. In light of the behavior thing, what have you seen as you've done the homework on like what moves the needle and how can people like really unlock uh
Yeah. Golly, thanks for asking that, Jose. It's so there's two things. One is this is that I'm getting a little bit researchy right now, but the story about beliefs and attitudes related to behavior is an interesting story because there is a lot of research that would say that if you do change what you do, it actually changes what you believe. So that is true. And then there's the other reality is that if you change what you believe, it changes what you do. And it's the whole issue of cognitive dissonance. And the concept is if I believe one thing but I'm doing something different, that if I change those beliefs, now I've got a dissonance. It's uncomfortable. And so I will seek to psychologically, I will seek to bring back this sense of things work together, and it works both ways. But in so many cases, like you're saying, people believe something that just really isn't the whole truth. And I would say one of the things that we've found that is so built into what you do for young people and now for organizations and leaders is that we just don't do a great job of inviting people out. We live in an answer culture.
Mm.
And answers matter. They do matter. But they don't, we all want everyone else to own their own development and their own growth and their own, what psychologists would call agency. But we've done just a crap poor job of actually inviting it out. And so what we do most of the time is we tell people, here's the 5 principles of leadership, live them out. And it's like it just doesn't work. It's like if I tell Jose and I say, Jose, trust me. That might work if he knows the whole story behind that statement. But me asking you to trust me doesn't make you trust me. It's an invitation into a conversation where what we have veiled comes to the surface. And so my I guess the simple way I would respond to your question is I think just asking better questions instead of prescribing over people's issues. And I found that with young people, like even students that I worked with, it's too rarely they're used to being lectured at.
Yep.
And it's too easy.
Yep.
The hardest person on your team has probably never been invited to share why they're difficult. You know what
Absolutely.
I'm saying? And so
Yes.
thank you for asking. And I think
Yeah.
I just said crap poor for the first time on the
I,
podcast.
I would love to contextualize that to Gen Z because that's the new workforce that's coming in now, right?
Golly.
What people are missing about them is they have so much information at the tip of their finger that they don't need you to tell them anything. The best thing you can do for Gen Z is to invite, to get inquisitive about what they're engaged in, why they're engaged, and you will see Gen Z run through a wall for you.
Yeah.
If you're just barking orders, if you're just do this, and I understand in work context, like we need you to perform. I have a Gen Zer right now, and honestly, I was so excited when he came in, and then he came in, and I said, "Oh, okay, we got some real work to do." And initially, I was like, "Hey, like just questions, questions, questions." But I've asked so many questions that now I actually needed to like set the standard for him because he didn't know the
Yeah.
standard. So
Yeah.
it's not one at the cost of the other. There's a both and here. But I know I have such a rapport with him that when I had that standard conversation with him, he showed up drastically different the day after. And that came from the inquisitive part of that beginning. And so they will run through a wall for you if you just learn to ask those questions that you were referencing right there.
Oh, that's just gold. And it's something you said that I want every leader to hear is you said it's not one at the expense of the other. We know that we have to provide clarity, but they'll accept the clarity if we see them.
Yep.
It's like they will run through a wall for you. Sab, that'll preach, man.
Yeah.
That will
That's so
preach.
good.
Can we talk about let's talk and it's just a natural flow here of into trust.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we define trust as your belief in my integrity that I will do what you're asking me to do and I'll have your best interests in mind as I do that. I'll be thinking about your needs as well. That I'll do what you're asking me to do, that I be able to do it, that I'll do it reliably, that I'll do it consistently, that I will do it well, or if I can't, that I'll improve. And that the last part is that I will tell you the truth when I can do it, and I'll tell you the truth when I'm feeling like I can't. That truth part is just a massive part of this. And I'm so curious about how your story has shaped your understanding of trust.
Oh, what a question. I grew up in a environment that I was trained to not trust people. That
Hmm.
I was indoctrinated and you don't trust people. You don't trust adults. Everybody wants something from you. I'm only loyal to those that are like me, that are from where I'm from.
Hmm.
And it deeply hindered my ability to see the world through any different lens because I was sold on trust was not possible. It's
Oh,
not a thing. Well, come to faith. I get into leadership, and I think I'm coming out of this because now I'm reading more. And eventually I hit rock bottom in 2016. I had a real just public fall, and had to walk through this real intense like restoration season. And I remember being at rock bottom, realizing I can't get up from here without trusting people.
Hmm.
Like there's no way up without
Hmm.
trust. Like I actually have to trust people in order for me to climb out of this. And the healing that took place in that low drastically changed the way I viewed trust. Now, I stand on this. I don't think trust is earned as much as it's given. Okay? I give trust. I don't expect people to earn it from me. I think you get real manipulative if you do that. Like then people got to jump through hoops just for you to trust them. Now there's a results aspect, and you already had Stephen Covey on here, so I won't regurgitate his book. But I've been in that book, like learning like the speed of trust. So like I'm in that conversation, but trust to me is given first before it should ever be earned. And then when it's broken, then you have to restore it. And I'd love to have that conversation too, because I've learned a
Yeah.
lot of how to restore trust, the good and the bad of that. Yeah.
In our state of trust report, we talk about the jungle where relationships are weak and distrust rules. And we've heard a little bit about this already, but where have you observed similar dynamics, whether it's in your team or among the young people that you get to work with? What does it take to start pulling someone out to trust themselves
Mm.
and to trust others? And you've hit on this, but we want to get a little deeper.
Yeah, yeah, good question. What does it take to pull somebody out of the jungle? That's the question, right?
Mm.
Yep, out of the
I,
jungle.
in real time, I'm learning it right now. Now, with students, it's I can answer it pretty easily because it really takes consistency. It takes you showing up when others don't. It takes presence. It doesn't take perfection.
Mm.
Going back to the definition, it takes truth and honesty, right? So, like, especially with like urban students who have been lied to their whole life, all types of broken promises, broken commitments to them, the whole thing, right? They're not looking for somebody to come and save the day. They just need somebody to be honest that they can't. Like, I actually can't be there for you right now. And that would go a long way. So on that end, it's a little easy, but I'm in the middle of learning this organizationally with my team. A year ago, we brought in a consultant, and it wasn't a SWOT analysis, but it was like a SWOT analysis. He did this like 3 hour, let's explore what's working here, what's going well, and then what's not. And out of there, he said, well, your biggest issue is that you lack trust here. And
Mm.
in my brain as a solution guy, I'm like, how do we gotta fix this? Like, and so he recommended Steven's book. And so I immediately did a deep dive, and I was like, okay, I'm going there. I'm gonna start. But here's um here's what I've learned about where trust is broken down at. Most of the time I've experienced trust breaking down from broken commitments. It's what
Mm.
people actually committed to or agreed upon, and then it was broken. And now I hesitate to trust you again because you broke the last commitment that I gave you. And here's the biggest lesson for me in light of broken commitments, because I can very much be like, hey, you did this, you did that. And the more you do that, the more you just sound like a jerk of a boss. The more you just sound like, just somebody that's only like barking orders and like, but every broken commitment is actually a cry for help. And it radically shifted the way I handled trust and the breakdown of trust that's taken place in our organization. It helped me get really curious around why people were showing up and breaking commitments. Like, why? What happened? Like, what's getting in the way of this? Do you acknowledge that you broke a commitment? Like, can you just own the fact that that was broken? Also, when I broke commitments, it broke down trust. If I said, I'm going to send an email by tomorrow, about X, Y, and Z. This is the smallest thing. It might not even be a deal breaker. But if they don't get that email by tomorrow, I broke a commitment. And then they hesitate then to trust my next commitment that I make. I'll do this for you. Again, kind of small, minute, but when we took the assessment, and I wasn't surprised by our results. We were for sure in the jungle of trust. We spent the last 6 months climbing out of that though, from January up until now. And so a lot of even what we learned in the assessment, I was like, I love that we're already in this conversation right now. Like this wasn't a new, like, oh no, we're in the middle of it. So yeah, a lot, but I honestly like consistency, being honest, truth is like how I've seen people come out of that, but really owning the broken commitment part, repenting for that, like that's such a massive deal, uh,
Hmm.
that regains trust. Like, I'll just say this. In my relationship to my wife, when I don't do the dishes like she wants me to do, or I don't take out the trash that she wants me to do, and I'm lazy, and I'm the one day, and then I don't do the stuff she wants me to do, and then one day I'm like, hey, let's go on a date right now. Let's, and she's gonna be like, I'm not feeling a date right now. Like, no, because without like a turn of heart or real repentance, people don't get excited about the thing we're doing together. And when people can own their own mishaps, man, trust can be restored. And I think we're just kind of on the front end of restoring trust. So I could be the poster child for how to break it easily.
Yep.
But yeah, that's where we are.
So, man, you are highlighting something important that because it was one of the key drivers. We found that reliability. So it's not even just maintaining the commitment, it's doing that reliably. So like we're all going to let each other down at certain points, but we have to be consistent in those behaviors. And let's take that one step deeper because I love that you brought up your relationship to your wife because all of us can relate to that, in close relationships, especially in marriage. Good
Yeah.
God. But what's so interesting is that thinking about something like being reliable or being true to your commitments, doing the things you say you're going to do. And this is why I want to invite our listeners into this conversation too, is that sometimes our capacity and even motivation to be reliable and to keep our commitments is driven by something deeper.
Mm,
And that's an important part of the wild story. To take a whole look at what you said that's just gold is like, so imagine that we want trust, right? Like Jose's already said, like, I can't move up without trust.
mhm.
I can't go up. And then this commitments thing is a big deal, which is that's an important piece. But then imagine, most of us would admit that this is true, that there are things in our relationships to each other and our understanding of ourselves that are actually impacting the things we do.
Mm,
And it's even in so something as simple as this that's a part of like one of our assessments is the motivational drivers inventory because what's fascinating about that is that this reality that people are motivated by different things. It's kind of similar to the love languages concept that another friend of mine is very deep into. And it's if we're speaking our own motivational ways to someone else, it actually will reduce the possibility that we get the results and the behavior we want. Whereas
mhm.
if we saw someone for their unique motivations,
Good.
and we spoke to them that way and we understood that it actually would affect them keeping their commitments. You know what I mean? Like very few of us are motivated by fear, although it works sometimes.
Yeah.
It doesn't really sustain for the long haul. So if I
Yeah.
understood your unique drivers and inspiration, even to do something as simple as take the garbage out or the dishes, now imagine what that does at work. So I'm sorry. It's wow. So
So
good.
the CEO in me says, how do you blanket that? Like, now we're not a big org, like we're pretty small. We got 12 people on our team. And I hear you in like,
Yeah.
man, the more I know my team, the better I can know what drives them, what motivates them. And we need stuff to be like done and like, you know what I mean? And
Totally.
so how do you establish that like across the board organizationally for a company, a business, to where people still feel cared for, loved, and seen and valued, but then like the standard is still the standard. We're still accomplishing the task here.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Thanks for asking that. So one of our team members, who's a key strategic advisor and leader on our team, said just the other day, Sabbath heard this too, said what Wild Leaders is doing is not a program.
Mm,
And now think about it. We typically treat this part, this trust part, as a program or a training, or we buy a book and we do a book club. That this is a way of doing business.
good.
And so we have operational realities. Like we all know that our organizations will not thrive without systems. Yeah, when you start speaking as a CEO, you're speaking to me, right? It's like we have to perform.
Yeah,
The other reality is we have to perform together. And so we have to be trusted, which is the invisible part. And so the reason why I would say it's not a program is but you do need a regular cadence of conversations. This is what is so missing in the world, Jose, in this whole realm is those conversations that connect the development and the learning of what's going on inside of a person to the work. So
mm,
when we start to have a conversation around, and this is why we created a scaffolding for something like that's just one part of the,
yeah, yeah,
this stuff, like motivations. We had to create an assessment for that so that people would understand. So what are those motivations, Rob?
yeah,
So we create that, but then it's not enough for us to step out into an offsite and go, let's all talk about our unique motivators. When it gets powerful, is it's not a program. It's a part of our operational strategy
yeah,
that we have a conversation. So I understand Jose and I work together and I understand what he's motivated by. And now we talk about what is the relevance of that motivation to our ability to actually get this thing done we're working on.
good.
And now my personal story has teeth in an organization.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And we have we had ours as a team yesterday. And Sabbath, I'm like, every time we have that conversation as a team and we connect it to what we're doing together as a team, as a leadership team, then all of a sudden we're all like, okay, this has very deep implications for our performance. Because if we don't perform for our people we serve, they won't trust us.
that's good. That's good. A friend of mine defines leadership as, particularly in an organizational context or even a ministry context, as helping a person get to where they're ultimately trying to go while in the vehicle that we're currently in right now. So while there are people here at Rescue Generation that I know will not be here forever, right? The more I'm aware of where they're headed, the more I can use the vehicle that we're in right now to train, to develop. And the more I do that, the more results I'm going to get from them personally,
Right.
to your point, because there's that motivation factor. We understand them, we know where they're headed. So, prime example, we had a fire creative director that's awesome, just killing it with videos, and recently had a conversation with him, and I was like, hey, where are you headed? Like, what's this next thing that you want to go do? And he was like, honestly, it's coaching. Like, I want to coach creatives. And I was like, I don't think we have you in the right seat then. Because while you're capable of fully creating and like doing the thing, if you want to develop the coach in you, you need to be in this seat. And that's going to help you get to where you're ultimately trying to go, which is develop the people who are creatives out in the world. And it was just such a gracious conversation. It wasn't a like bad reprimand. It was like, no, like, how do we put you where you are going to best thrive here? Then we'll be happy. Then you'll be happy. And then we're going to go change the world together. Like, and so yeah, just using
Good.
that motivation piece though as a factor, I just think it's such a big deal. I do also sometimes wonder, like, if I had 50 people, how could I do that?
Yeah.
If I have 100 people, how can I do that? Because it
Yeah.
works in my context right now. But then, like, how do I, the more we scale and grow
Yeah.
and expand,
Yeah.
how do you keep that same level of intentionality?
And I'm telling you, it works. You've seen it. You've heard me talk about this, and it takes a CEO like you though who says, "I'm not just going to provide this. I'm going to participate in it. We're going
Yeah,
to do this. We're going to make this a part of our culture." And it's so interesting what you just said that there's so much gold in that because we talk about and one thing we assess is what's called aligned retention. So it's not, it's this concept of belonging has kind of been thrown out there, and it's like everyone belongs somewhere, but not everyone belongs everywhere.
mm,
And when we pretend that we have to make people feel like they belong everywhere, we actually don't do anything.
oh
And
man,
so this reality of this conversation that you created is amazing. When people start to see where the organization is going with honesty, then they can make a choice. And many of those now go like, oh, I want to be here. I didn't realize that was possible.
Yeah.
Will you say something about, so Jose, you brought up that you assess trust and you all took the Wild Trust Index. Um, and I would say this, you kind of said this already, but I'm curious about why it was important for you to assess trust and what you would say to another CEO who says, what if I'm in the jungle? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if I want to, I don't know if I want to find out.
Yeah. For me, the vision of Rescue a Generation is really clear. I know where we're going. And because I know where we're going, if we're going to get there, we first have to assess our current reality. What's in the world we are currently in right now? What's happening that we're not noticing, that we're not being honest about, what's getting in the way? And in the coaching world that I live in, we would say the difference between current reality and vision is where transformation happens. And so, if we're going to transform and live out the vision that we know we're called to live out, gonna like eventually get to where we're supposed to be going, you cannot do that without being very, very brutally honest about your like current situation. And so for me, um, so current reality, but the other part is feedback.
Yeah.
The assessment was feedback, right? And feedback is one of those things that people don't typically seek out unless you're kind of one of those like you know,
A
gluttons for
junkie.
punishment, like, you know, you just like, tell me about myself, you know. But like, but feedback, and feedback is not only people being critical or whatever. We would say feedback is all neutral.
Yeah.
Like feedback is not positive or negative, it's neutral. It's just data, it's just an assessment. It's just let's look at what is so that we now know what to do with it or how to like where to go with this. And so the assessment was really important for the feedback. It was also really important for us to look at our current reality so that if we actually want to get to a national organization, multiple chapters, reaching millions of students. We cannot do there with our current level of trust. It's actually
Hmm.
not possible. And
Mm,
so the more I know that, the more I know how to get us out of here, the less willing I am to explore that, the more likely I am to stay stuck here.
Wow.
And so really like be the willingness to like let's go swim in this data and see what's what and like where are we? To me it's a resource. It's actually a
Yeah.
gift. It's a blessing to us and our team. And I'll be honest, when I showed the results to our team, because I did, I showed the personal, I showed the team trust, and I showed the organizational trust. Our the results were astounding because the personal one was like through the roof. Everybody believed in themselves at some level. It was wild. Like I was like, that's
Mm-hmm.
interesting. Our team trust was the lowest, and then the org trust was actually higher than I thought it was going to be. But it was still pretty low. We still have quite a bit of work to do in that. I say all of that because number one, I have no problem sharing like where we are and like just what we're building. But the team trust is such a big deal that if we can't restore the relationships that are currently here, we're actually not going to be able to go where we're supposed to be going.
Building trust in your business starts with being able to measure it so that you can create a pathway for change. Our Wild Trust Index measures the drivers of trust at the personal, team, and organizational levels. We are building the largest database on the drivers of trust inside of organizations. This survey will inform growth imperatives and the necessary organizational change needed to fuel that growth. For more information, visit wildleaders.org, click on the Wild Trust platform, and get started with the Wild Trust Index today.
Hmm.
So there has to be some real repairs that are done in the trust from the team. I would not have known that without this assessment. Now I could
Mm.
see it, I can assume it, but the assessment helps to specify where it's broken down at. And so it was very enlightening, eye-opening, and
Hmm.
but really a gift for us.
Wow.
You just put into words what the data is showing. Let's go swimming in the data. I love that. I think we need to make a shirt that says, let's go swim in the data. The data shows that even in the strongholds of trust, in that upper right quadrant, where team members trust each other and team members trust their organization, there are pockets of distrust
Mhm.
or moments of questioning. How would you encourage a CEO of a business or a non-for-profit to think about trust? And if you're willing, share a moment where you or someone on your team took that leap of vulnerability and what came out of it.
Yeah, I have a really great example. There's a guy on our team that's been here for a really long time. We have a pretty significant position opening up because we had the wrong person in that position. He was the right person, like as far as how long he's been here. He's a gift, he's talented, but that position requires a managerial type person, and he's not wired that way. And
Mm,
what happened was because I kept him in that position for so long, people started to lose trust in my decision making, like as the leader. And there's a lot of it that's pointed at him, but it's also reflected back to me because I actually kept him there for so long. So now this position is becoming vacant because I finally owned it and I said, look, told him we're not going to kick you out of the organization. You're a huge asset here. We want to grow with you, etc. But I am going to kick you out of that position. We got to shift this. And we got to put the right person in that position, put the right seat on the boat so we can actually go. Well, there was another guy who longevity wise, and I would even say impact on campus wise, should have just got the position. And he thought he was going to. He thought, I'm next. I'm going to be the one in the position. And we had a conversation, and it was a difficult conversation. And he asked me the bold question, which I was so proud of him for asking. Because we said, we're not going to just promote somebody into that position. If you want it, you can apply, but we're going to open up that position because we need the right person in. And he asked me, he said, why was I not just promoted in? What a gutsy question. And here was my answer. And Stephen talks about this in The Speed of Trust. But where there is a lack of trust, suspicion thrives.
mm-hmm,
I said, I don't trust, or I'm suspicious of, which obviously means I don't trust fully how you would steward that position because of what I've already seen here from you. We've seen him over a period of time kill it in the areas that he's really, really good at, but I've also seen the breakdown of the other areas, and that hasn't felt good to really want to lean in and like give or just promote this thing. And so, difficult conversation. The end of the conversation was beautiful. There was
mm,
clarity. It felt like almost felt like healing. It felt like let's be honest, like let's go there. And I felt like there was a level of restoration to even our relationship that was broken down because I was able to own the fact that I didn't trust him. And again, you're probably not setting up a meeting with somebody to say, hey, I don't trust you. But the more you can lean in when those conversations show up, and the more honest we could get about why and what's getting in the way, the more people can grow. I'm excited for this year for him. And whether or not he gets that position, he's still in the runnings for it. But like, I'm excited. I'm genuinely excited because I feel like we were able to restore what was lost at one point, and then now the future is possible because of that moment. So yeah, just my example of where it was broken down and how I felt like we had to come back together for it.
Let's talk for a moment about some generational differences or differences across different ages. And one of the things I know that you saw in our report and our research was that trust was actually, this is across the board anyway. There are always going to be nuance and individual stories, but it was so surprising, Jose, when we saw the results and we mapped out people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s and looked at their perceptions of where they fell in terms of that quadrant. Were they in the jungle? Were they in the stronghold? Were they islands of trust? Were they trust team members? You know, who's in the foxhole with them, but they don't trust their organization? Or were they in the shell, where they have high organizational trust, but it's a little messy within teams? And I was really curious about this. When we looked at the data, it was surprising because it's kind of counterintuitive or counter to what culture often says, is that actually people in their 20s were the highest.
Mm,
They had the most team trust and organizational trust. Now, I have my own theory on why that's true, and I'm actually speaking tonight to a bunch of young professionals about that. And then what we found was that in their 30s, it took a serious dip.
mm,
And I'll just give you quickly my theory is that probably what's occurring is that in their 20s, when it comes to the workplace, they're a little bit naive. Meaning, I'm not trying to slam them in any way, but they just haven't experienced the jungle of trust. And then
yeah.
they get into the workplace and they realize, like, oh, organizationally, people are kind of messed up. You know what I mean? And then what we saw that was fascinating is in your 40s, 50s, and 60s, it starts to climb back up. You could almost draw a line through
Wow.
that shift. But the highest was the 20s.
Mm,
And I'm curious about for the young people that you serve. I love the least last lost. Like trust can be a lifeline. And how does building trust with youth have the possibility of changing the trajectory of their life according to what you're seeing?
yeah. It changes everything. Like, and I mean everything. One of the primary like indicators that a student is not trusting people in general is like poor behavior. And it shows up in a lot of ways. In like, with parents, it shows up like, showing out, shows up with teachers, with students, and story that just really stands out to me. A young lady gets into our program as a seventh grader, seventh grade. She's suspended 9 times in 2 months. School starts in August. By October, she was about to be expelled from the school district.
Hmm.
And we get into that school and we start to our 10-week program. And when we're in our program, we're actually very vulnerable ourselves. Like that's actually, we would say vulnerability is our secret sauce. That's how we've developed the rapport with these students. Because, like, again, asking a student to do what I'm not willing to do is actually hypocritical. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, if we're going to reach this generation, we got to be honest and be able to do what we're asking them to do. You want them to find a mentor, you find a mentor. You want them to be honest, you be honest, right? It's literally like that. This young lady, week 3 in our program, small attitude change, nothing major, just small. You just start to see her show up a little bit different. By week 10, her mom comes to our big celebration that we do, and she's in full blown tears. And I'm thinking like she's in tears because, like, she's proud of her daughter or whatever. She's like, no, I'm in tears because before your program, she said, I was on the campus 3 times a week and I got really close with the principal. She was like, after week 3, I have not been to the school anymore at all. And so she just missed the principal. So she got emotional that she like had got to that young lady and her mom's relationship, because trust was restored from that young lady to life. Her mom told us this story a year ago. That young lady just graduated high school. She had never been suspended again. Her mom said, she is my person now. We go
Mm-hmm.
everywhere together. We do everything together. That young lady almost pushed her mom down a flight of stairs as a seventh grader. Everything was broken. And now to see it restored and to see the trajectory she's on with the relationships around her, goals, ambitions, where she's headed, it literally speaks to when trust is restored, everything can change. And it's why when trust is broken, everything seems like it's in shambles. And I would even say, from the organizational standpoint, we were at our worst. It felt like everything was in shambles when trust was broken, but we didn't know trust was broken.
Mm-hmm.
It just felt so chaotic here. Now we're being intentional, so it feels like things are moving in the right direction. But that same thing applies with students. Yeah, if you can help a student to trust again, adults, leaders, school, whatever it is, things will drastically shift, and students will be on their way to a much better and brighter future.
Wow.
So good. Jose, when you see that shift begin, whether that's in this student as they're in your program, or when a leader sees their quadrant results for the first time and they have an emotional reaction, what would you encourage your leaders or coaches or students? What is that week 1 action, that next step after they found out where they fall, or after she's accepted the invitation into your program? What is that practical step to
Yeah.
move upward?
There's two thoughts I have. Number one, it's just the being not just honest, but taking ownership. Like
Yeah.
taking ownership that this is this way because I allowed it this way. Both from a behavioral standpoint for that young lady, at some level, she was responsible for how her life was playing out. Now, she was a seventh grader. She couldn't control what happened with her dad. And, so there's some things that were out of her control, but how she was handling life, she needed to take some real accountability for, some real ownership for. She began to do that. When you see the trust assessment, when what we just did recently, I could have spent that whole like next week arguing, defending, debating, deflecting. I could have been like, no, that's not true. They don't know us. We've been spending 6 months in the speed of trust. And like, no, this just like, I could have went all over the place trying to justify where it is that I thought I was, as opposed to the reality of what I just exposed. But I cannot grow without taking complete ownership that this is the way it is because at some level I allowed it, I participated in it, and I tolerated it. And when I own that, the next thing I would say is you eat an apple one bite at a time. Like we scored pretty low in the jungle of trust quadrant, and it excited me. Not because I want to go from there until like I would love to be that poster child of like, hey, we went from here to like way up here. But it excited me because now I know what we're working with, and I can take one of those things and we could just build one thing at a time. And let's restore one thing at a time. And then you don't got to go change overnight because typically not possible, but there has to be a level of ownership first. If you don't take ownership, it is impossible for you to move past that. We allowed it. We got here because of decisions we made. And I can't even blame my team for that. That would be really irresponsible of me as a leader to be like, yeah, that's their fault. They're broken and they don't trust us and we trust them. And like, no, I started that. That was a me thing. And if it's a me thing, then I can own it. I can get better from it. I can grow from it. I just do it one thing at a time.
I'm going to say something about Jose that I think everyone listening right now will understand and experience that they would say. That is an astonishing level of ownership. That just made the hair stand up on my arms. How rarely you hear a CEO say, I own it and I participated in it. It's a story of all of us. This is what we would describe, and we also assess it's a part of trust is emotional maturity, is that willingness to understand that we are fragmented and broken, and we have to do that no matter where we land in the quadrants. It's like it's have to be able to do that, and our hope is to call you into that level of awareness, because that's where trust begins. It's where it starts. And so thank you for that. I want to ask you one last question. Like, looking ahead, as you scale Rescue a Generation, and we are with you. Like, this is just you won't be able to escape me the rest of your life, Jose, after we were introduced. But
Sounds good.
as you scale this organization, this mission, this call on your life, and I'm curious about how trust building and even whole and intentional leader development will shape and participate in your growth strategy over the next 3 to 5 years. Like, what are your thoughts around that?
Well, I have a lot right now. Again, I'm going to regurgitate the book. We will scale at the speed of trust. I
Mm-hmm.
am not in a rush to be in 10 states, 50
Mm-hmm.
cities, because I only want to go to the level in which I can steward what we have really, really well. Now, I'm an ambitious leader. If you're around me for any amount of time, I think I can change the world tomorrow, no doubt about it. Like, there's no question in my mind that that's possible. And I don't want to be a shooting star. I want to build something that's going to live decades and centuries beyond me. As long as this world is corrupt and, struggling, a rescue generation is needed. The next 3 to 5 years, we will go as far and as fast as we're able to build trust and develop leaders. Like if we can do those two things, like if those are our like staples for the next 3 to 5 years, in 5 years, I could easily see us in 15 states.
Mm-hmm.
No exaggeration, because we're already entertaining like four. Like, so like, again,
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, we often underestimate what we can do in a year, or overestimate what we can do in a year, but then underestimate what could take place in the next 5 or 10 years. And I've lived that. In 2021, we went from 2 schools to 23 schools in one semester. Like, that level of growth is like very possible for the work we do because the need is everywhere. But I will not go faster or further than we can trust each other, and then we can develop the leaders, that whole intentional leadership development, to be able to steward what it is that we're trying to do here. And the ultimate thing is this: while yes, there's a business side of this, and while yes, we are an organization, there's a mission and there's money involved, etc. Our mandate is clear. We actually want to rescue a generation.
Mm.
We will do that until it's all said and done. And a rescue generation is not only in SoCal. That's not just a SoCal thing.
Right.
That's an actual generation. And we'll go as far and as fast as we can, but it'll be through trust and whole leadership development.
Yeah, it's so good because a generation isn't just the youth, it's our generation, right? I know this is on your heart. I had a little vision right now that Stephen Covey, by the way, is going to hear this podcast. And I had a vision that we're gonna the four of us will be on one together.
Let's go.
Yeah.
You said
Yeah.
something, you said something that is really important, that he does talk about, that you can measure trust. If you can measure speed and you can measure cost, you can measure trust. But there's something deeper that you just said that he would love that people hear, is that you said my organization will grow at the speed of trust, meaning it will only grow as fast as trust grows.
Yep.
And so it's oftentimes we think like, oh, more trust, more we go faster. But you said something more profound than just simply that. And so I'm so grateful for that. Sab, wow.
Powerful.
Take us
Yes.
home.
Jose, we want the people listening to know how they can connect with the work that you're doing. And if you are an educator and you have those at-risk youth around you, especially, how can they reach out and connect with the work that you're doing at Rescue Generation?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Rescueageneration.com is the website. You can find a lot of the information there. Our contact page is there, and it'll go directly to me. Also, YouTube is a good space to start. You can go find our stuff on YouTube if you want to inquire more about what we do and how we do it. There's plenty of content that we have on there. And then I'm all over social media. So find me, follow me, would love to connect. And yeah, I love people. So, and I'm super like extroverted, and so any people I can connect with, I'm happy to. And I'm really thankful though for Wild Leaders. Let me just insert this here. Dr. Rob, thank you for building something that's developing the whole leader, because in the world we live in, there's a million leadership books that are mainly how-tos, and your intentionality to go deeper, to see beyond the surface, I think is what's going to help leaders last longer. I think we're in a season where we're seeing way too many leaders burn out, punk out, back out, and I just think the intentionality of developing the whole leader is what's so necessary for this generation. And so thank you for that. Thanks for this time. This was awesome. Hope to do it again soon.
Jose, one last wild question. We can't let you off yet. Are you in a season of accepting yourself or changing yourself?
Oh, I like that question. Accepting myself. Can I expound on that? Is that
Yeah.
yeah?
Please.
As I was dealt the cards I was dealt, it took me a long time to understand the gift that God called me to be to the world.
Mm.
I had to just unpack a lot of trauma and pain and rejection. And this is the season, and this is gonna sound so arrogant, and I'm actually okay with that, that I actually realized that like I am a gift, and God's called me to be a gift to anybody that I come in contact with, and the value that I give is really valuable. I just second guessed that for all of like my life up until maybe the last 3 years. So that whole I'm accepting that I am who I am unapologetically, and I'm gonna change the world, and I can't wait to see what happens. So
Thank you for listening to this Wild Conversation podcast. For more information, visit wildleaders.org click on the Wild Trust platform and get started with the Wild Trust Index today.